It's time to lock the doors and pump in the interesting gas. We're going to start to feel pretty relaxed in about 10-20 minutes. Just a mild tingling in your fingers and toes. Soon all of your childhood worries and problems will be gone. Along with all of your personality. Oh. So welcome to my shiny world. Too shiny. Shiny movies, what? Fine. Good Lord, these people are all here. Yeah, pretty one of those weird dreams again. Are you wearing pants? Or that was just painted on. Nice joke. That's always the second question. Are these the pants you woke up in? Are they the same pants you went to bed in? I can do the Steven Tyler style.
Hi everybody, my name is Carly. I'll be your co-host today.
Hey Carly!
Here's someone. Don't tell anyone. We have a person in the audience. Hi. What's your name, sir?
My name is Bob.
Hi Bob.
This question is to Scott McNeil. It's a three-part question. Part one, in season 2, there was a scene in episode 7 when Hack and Slash were having an argument, and there was a point where I don't think that the right voice was on the right robot, and I'm wondering if you know why that is. Number 2, will there be another reboot of ReBoot?
Just breathe one.
Okay. And if they do a reboot of ReBoot, I would like to voice Bob.
No, you know what, God bless you, Bob, but, you know, what we do is difficult.
I don't think so.
Really, you think that you could voice Bob?
Yeah, I do.
Okay. Really?
I come from the net. Through systems, cities, and peoples to this place. Toronto. Really fun, buddy. Really fun.
That was crazy. You gave me goosebumps.
Awesome. Good to see you, Scott.
No, just I mean you were sexual.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. I am Mike. Good morning.
And now I'm not.
Is that okay?
My name is Scott, and I'm me. That's my usual Sunday meeting.
I'm going to take this opportunity to do something that I did in Calgary.
Call your mom.
I should call her right now. I asked everybody if they knew the opening monologue of ReBoot. And I'm going to do a little West Coast, East Coast rivalry here. Do you guys think you know it?
Yeah!
You ready for this, bro? Okay,
Hang on.
here we go.
Count them in. We're going to count them in. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear the opening of ReBoot.
I come from the net. Through systems, peoples, and cities to this place. Mainframe. My format, Guardian. To mend and defend. To defend my newfound friends. Their hopes and dreams. To defend them from their enemies.
Not done yet.
User lives outside the net and inputs games for pleasure. No one knows for sure, but I intend to find out. ReBoot!
Michael Benyaer, good night.
That is when you drop the mic and leave.
You know what? I got nothing.
Unbelievable. I'm just gonna
West Coast or East Coast?
East Coast. Sorry.
They were equally good, but I just like the Canadian oat in a boot. I like it was, here we are.
Sorry, it's not pronounced reboot, it's
Reboot.
Rebound.
You know what?
Rebound.
You just when we first did the show, they didn't know how they were going to say it.
Really?
So we did several versions of this. Reboot, reboot, reboot. Like, it was all these different versions. How would you say it? What would be the catchiest way to say it? So there's probably a version out there. Maybe the earlier episodes, I don't say it exactly reboot like that. And it's really funny. You all know this monologue, and a couple years ago there was a convention in Vancouver, and I couldn't make it, but I was on Skype.
Yeah, I think
okay. And someone at the end of the convention asked me if I could do the opening monologue, and I had recorded it one time in 1993. I'm not going to lie, which is whenever the show, I would visit Canada, I was living in the States when it started, it would come on at night, 8:30 at night or 11:30 at night. I would hear, I come from the net. I would just change the channel. It's like hearing your voice in an answering machine. And so I knew the opening line, so I said, I come from the net, and I didn't know the rest, and I felt really embarrassed. So the next day I had something prepared, and I wrote that for them. But it's amazing that all these people know this by rote. Like I said to you yesterday, like the Lord's Prayer.
It was.
And it's something that I recorded like on a Tuesday morning in Vancouver, 20 years ago. And it's so amazing, so touching. If I do cry, please forgive me. It really is touching to do this. And it's amazing, it's amazing. So, take another, what's your earliest reboot memory?
I'm still overwhelmed by that.
Okay.
My cells are vibrating.
Okay, I'm just going to things top of my head. When we first did ReBoot, I did this yesterday, they were doing auditions, and they've been talking about it for about a year. And Doug Parker, who was the casting director of the show, we've been talking about it for months and months. And finally, the audition day came. And when I went to the studio, they had a promotional video running that they were using to sell the show. And in that was an early version of Pop. And there was a monologue saying about the show. And I walked into the studio and I heard it and I said, it sounded so much like me. I asked with really no irony, is that me? I forgot like I recorded it. He goes, yeah, it does sound like you. And I think at that moment, he was like, you should be the voice of ReBoot. So, Bob. So that was very early on, and we got it. And it took so long from the original record to the first air date. You have no idea. It was like a year or a year and a half. And in that time, I was doing the show, and we were doing other shows together, Hurricanes and things. And I went on vacation to LA, and I discovered almost to voice the reboot of Johnny Quest, where I played Haji on Johnny Quest, which got me my visa to the States, and I was an agent, and I would start doing that, and I would continue to fly back to Vancouver to do ReBoot, and we did that for the first 2 years. So I was already in the American marketplace and not aware of what a popular show ReBoot was when it started airing in Canada. And I know that YTV aired it about 3 times a day. Am I right?
Yeah.
So that's right, all here. So
It's like having a Greek chorus, though.
So I was unaware of, intellectually you understand the popularity of these things, right?
Yeah.
But until I've come to conventions the last 2 years, you don't really meet the people who are the fans because they don't know walking down the street that I am the voice of Bob, or you are Hack, or Flash, or whoever,
Whichever
the
one.
multiple voice. So I went one time to Vancouver, and when you enter, you have to go through customs. And they say, what are you doing here? I say, I'm an actor. They say, oh, like what? And I said, I'm here doing a show called ReBoot. ReBoot? What do you do at ReBoot? And I said, I voice Bob. He goes, no way. He goes, hey Max, I got Bob from ReBoot here. All the things were like, I was like, wow, this might be something. So you don't know these things until years later. So anyway, I'll open up to questions because I could talk randomly about these things. Questions? Yes.
Questions? Nobody has questions?
You have a question, sir?
when working on ReBoot, how was it to work with Tony J, late great Tony J?
That's a great question. How was it to work with Tony J? Scott, you can take the first one.
Well, I can't actually, because I was never in the same room.
That is
The
correct.
interesting thing about working with Tony J is actually human ears can't pick up his voice. They have to pitch him up in order for us to hear it. But when he wants to do whales in the middle of the Pacific go crazy. And they get weird seismic readings off the coast of Japan. So yeah, they had to pitch him up about 30% so it would come into the realm.
The true answer is Tony lived in Los Angeles. He was a British actor, and he never recorded the show with the rest of the cast. But as I told you, when I moved to the States, we ended up having the same agent at ICM. And one day I heard his name being called in the waiting room, and I introduced myself to him. And he was probably 60, 65, 6'4", a Shakespearean actor. And he said, "Oh, you're Bob from ReBoot, interesting." So after they trusted that I knew what I was doing, they would let me go on the tail end of his recording sessions to do my lines. I remember doing an episode of Bad Bob, and I watched him do the record, and he would sit there, he would sit at his chair in the studio and smoke while he was doing the recording. Yeah, and he would do 3 in a row. He would just sit there and take a puff of cigarette. I haven't felt this good since my first infection. I haven't felt this good since my first infection. I haven't felt this good since my first infection. A big drag from the cigarette. So that was the episode where Chris Bruff, who was one of the producers, not a director of the show, he was in LA and he was directing the episode that I was doing. And this, you guys all remember Bad Bob? Remember this episode? Yeah. Okay, so basically it was me screaming for 35 minutes. And he was like, okay, you're hanging on the side of the trailer now, and I need you to scream a little louder. No, like you're almost gonna die, no more. It was just me screaming the whole session. And I had no idea what was going on at that point because they just, gave me the lines and I would do it. And then later would I see what the show was about. I'm thinking of funny anecdotes. I did this is similar, but it's similar. I did this movie it was about 96, 97. And it was a mob movie with Joe Mantegna. And I've flown to Vancouver to work on it. I have about a week's worth with Joe Mantegna. We're doing a scene in a limousine where I'm sitting across from him and I'm a hitman about to kill him. And I don't know if they do movies, sometimes when you have a car scene, they will do different cars to get the different angles. So they had kind of a limo and a half, so we had several days doing the same thing over and over. So we're sitting there talking, and I said I live in LA, I'm doing this cartoon, and Joe Mantegna said, well, what are you doing with LA? And I said, well, I'm doing this cartoon down in West. So, do you want later on? And by chance, he knew her because of this Italian-American organization they belonged to. I said, yes, she directed this show I did called ReBoot. And he goes, ReBoot? What do you do on ReBoot? I said, you know ReBoot? He goes, yeah, I know ReBoot. And I said, I'm Bob on ReBoot? He's like, yo, Bob on ReBoot? I said, yeah, how do you know this? And he told me this very sweet and touching story that he had a little girl, she was about 7 at the time, who was autistic. And that she kept saying ReBoot, ReBoot over and over again. One morning, Saturday morning, she was pointing at the TV when he came down, and he realized she responded to the design of the show, the CGI look of the show. So, and then about a couple hours later, we're doing the scene in the takes. He says, wait till I tell my wife I make Bob for ReBoot. That was cool when Joe Mantegna did the show. Another question that I'm thinking myself this before. People ask me about catchphrases from the show. So do you all remember the line, I don't think so? Okay, so I got that in one of the early scripts, and I read it, and I immediately said, I know this, I know how to do this. Now, a lot of you are too young to remember. There was a rap song in the 80s called Going Back to Cali. Does anyone know that by LL Cool J? Okay, well, the chorus, the refrain is, I'm going back to Cali. I'm going back to Cali. No, I don't think so. So I thought that it was a reference to LL Cool J. So that is why I delivered the line such. So this, the delivery of I don't think so was inspired by LL Cool J. And this happened full circle a couple years ago at a party in Los Angeles. I meet LL Cool J. And I tell him this story. And he looks at me and just licks his lips as he does. He's like, I like that. Anyway, other questions? Went back to back there with glasses.
Yeah. Did either of you have to alter your performances in any significant way to portray characters set in a computer?
Well, you have to be converted into nano energy, which is way more painful than you might realize. That's an odd question.
You know what's interesting is that, joking aside, our voices are altered by computer. Even though it's, quote, my regular speaking voice 20 years ago, it is compressed, it sounds different, they sweeten things, they do things, which is why when people meet me, they go, well, do the voice. I say, I am doing it. Oh, we don't sound like, wow. I'm like, well, that was 20 years ago. But I mean, I think if I did it that way now, I mean, maybe it sounds similar, I don't know. It's a little different than every day. They sweeten it. So that is for use of computers. Another question? Yes.
For Scott McNeil?
Yes.
You seem to get cast in a lot of shows where you get multiple people and they always tend to argue with each other.
Well, inside my head. Inside one more crack. That I will take you on the old-fashioned way. You wanted to see a train there, Dino Boo. I have a news board story that actually ties into ReBoot because this is all about the honor of ReBoot. It was the same company, it was Mainframe that did Beast Wars. So we had gone in, auditioned, and I auditioned for everything. Because the more spaghetti you throw at the wall, the more chances something's gonna stick. You don't want to audition after me. But we're doing this thing, and they're paring it down, and then there's callbacks, and they're paring it down, and there's callbacks, and they're paring it down. And so the last round of auditions, they went, oh, there's gonna be some of the Hasbro execs. So anyway, they all became one company, but it's like, the toy execs, the client people that are Transformers. And I'm like, oh God. There's nothing worse than having suits in a creative process. So I go in, and sure enough, and there's these three very earnest young men in button-down suits. And it's a final round of auditions, and I do them, and so I do my auditions, I'm reading for anyway. But they go, oh, by the way, Scott, before you leave, we do have a question. They go, well, you worked on the ReBoot series, that's correct? I'm like, yes, I did actually. They went, we were wondering if you could tell us who voiced Fax Modem in the X-Files edition. I said, yeah, I can tell you that was me. They went, dude, oh my God, holy crap! Next day I got a call, you booked 4 characters on
It's funny that the David Duchovny voice you do is the most boring voice there is, right?
Well, I've never watched X-Files. They said, we want you to do Duchovny. I'm like, oh, I've never seen it. They're like, so I watched it, I went like, how can you do less than that? I didn't even say the lines, I just thought the lines. Remember, I just stuck my nose in the microphone.
It was funny because at the time, ReBoot was produced in Vancouver, and at the time, the X-Files had started, I think filming the same year, it was about 93, 94, and the art designer, I believe, on ReBoot ended up marrying Gillian Anderson. So that's how she was brought in to voice the spoof character on the show. And then they reached out to David Duchovny and said no. He was busy and that changed your life. And you got all those things. Yeah. You got all those
Cool J. LL Cool J. Shout out, man. Back to Cat.
Sorry, for both of you, is there any particular lines or episodes that were really fun to do?
Several.